Hey guys, Mr. Happy here, and today I'm going to be doing a quick video to do a couple of announcements. The first one is that, well, we finally have a date for the live letter part 13 for Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. Now this was actually announced on February 21st on the Japanese Lodestone, although not directly. The Japanese Lodestone was selling tickets for an event in Japan, and thus one of the listed events was the live letter. We had to wait for an official NA and EU announcement for another time. And we didn't even really get it, but the forums just suddenly popped up with the ability to ask questions for the next live letter. So we officially have the date and the time, and it's a little bit weird. It's going to be March 21st, which is a Friday if I'm not mistaken. And it's going to be at 2:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and that's because it's going to be about, I think it's 6:30 p.m. in Japan when they do the live letter. So it's a significant time difference between 6:30 p.m. in Japan and 2:30 a.m. here. You know, it's the same time, but it's just that's the way that the world works. You can't really change the way that the world determines time frames. So it's going to be really early, 5:30 in the morning for us on the East Coast. So either we're staying up late or we're waking up early. I haven't really decided yet. They also gave us a short preview of Leviathan. Now, it's not like a major preview. It's not like they released a video or anything. It's just a few screenshots of Leviathan, you know, the name of his quests, the amount of people that will be participating for both hard and extreme. It doesn't show item level requirements, I guess, because they want to keep that in the dark until the live letter, how they're handling item levels. I don't know why. It's not like it needs to be any super huge secret, but it's just the way that they've decided to approach it. So, you know, there's a few screenshots I have here of just Leviathan and some of the weapons he's going to be dropping. I'm interested to see how powerful these weapons are, especially because they're keeping the item level in the dark for so long. Do they have some special plan for item level? I don't think they do, but I guess we will see. But anyway, on the official forums, they finally let us ask questions for the live letter 13. So what I do every time is I ask a bunch of questions, and then I come to YouTube and I share those questions with you, and I encourage you guys to go ask your own questions. Even if it's the same question somebody else asked, if you see that, then like that other question. Just at least go check out the forum and leave your feedback in some way, whether it's your own question or liking somebody else's question. So there were quite a few topics. Most of the topics that are super interesting about endgame were covered in the last one. So this is more of the non-endgame things, some of the simpler things that we get to ask questions about. And of course, they did open a general 2.2 questions area, and I took that opportunity to ask questions that weren't answered in the last live letter when I asked them. So these may be rehashes. I don't think I asked these exactly, but I did ask at least one of these at some point, and I've mentioned them on my live stream. So the first question is, will there be more than one boss per turn in the binding coil that rewards loot? As some of you may remember, each binding coil was just a single boss. You can argue that the first Allagan defense system that you encounter in turn 1 is a quote-unquote boss. I like to think of him more as Crystal Tower trash, just trash with some mechanics. As far as I'm concerned, that's all ADS really was in turn 1. I would like to have maybe 1 or 2 bosses per binding coil turn. I would like to have some of them at least have two bosses with loot, so they can break up where you obtain certain pieces of loot instead of throwing so many pieces of loot onto just 4 bosses. So that was my first question. And my second question was, will 2.2 itemization allow for more interesting choices between Allagan and AF2, such as set bonuses? I have another question that's a little bit like this coming up, but the reason why I asked that is because I feel like if there's not enough interesting stats on gear. And I think we could see that in patch 2.0 and 2.1, that we would really like more interesting stats. You know, set bonuses, things like cure potency increases, flat damage increases, increasing the amount of damage per tick that certain spells do, increasing the buff durations of certain times. Just a lot of different things that they could do to really spice up gear. And I think set bonuses and the way they handle Allagan and the artifact sets are the perfect place to do that. So that was my second question, and those were my only 2 general 2.2 questions. I immediately moved on to the other questions, although I wasn't nearly as interested in these, but you guys might, and I did have some somewhat interesting questions for each of the other ones. So the next one is questions for Katsutoyo Mehiro, and I'm sure somebody's going to tell me I butchered that one. I like to say that every time. And he is actually the writer for the main scenario quest. And I just asked him a quick question. Having probably written the entirety of the story up for patch 2.0 until the expansion, how long would you say the entire story arc will be at its conclusion in hours? So I'm saying 2.0's story arc plus all the story arcs they added that are considered main scenario quests up until the expansion. I would like to know how long he would expect those quests to take somebody to do, as just to generally understand how long they expect the story to be. Now, the next question I had was about gardening. Now, for those of you who don't know what gardening is, they've hinted at it before that it's actually going to be a garden you can grow in your free company house, and you're going to be able to grow things and sell them. There's a lot of questions about this that need answering, and I had two. So the first question I had was, how will gardening impact the marketplace? Will it just create more influx of already common items, or can we expect some extremely rare materials to surface? And this is an important question because treasure hunts had this problem where items that were somewhat valuable became far less valuable without introducing many new items into the market. So all it did was basically lower the price and reduce the currency of making money on the marketplace. All it did was hurt the marketplace, in my opinion, by increasing the supply without increasing the demand. In fact, the demand was going down and the supply increased, so the market wasn't doing all so well. So I'm just wondering if it's just going to do that again, or if there's actually going to be some really interesting gardening materials. And the other question, because it's a free company activity, although I'm guessing it's only a free company activity because there's no personal housing yet. If personal housing comes along, I'm assuming you can start a personal garden, but because we're not there yet, that's only an assumption. So this question was in regards to it being a free company activity. Will materials grown from gardening only be able to be sold via free company vendors? Those of you who don't know, your free company is going to be allowed to put vendors out front, and you're going to be allowed to sell things as a free company to make money for the free company. Question is, what the hell are you going to sell? You know, and I'm hoping gardening is a thing that gives you a reason to have these NPCs as opposed to just walking 10 feet over to the marketplaces, which they added in the housing districts, by the way. And just selling them there. I'm just wondering what the benefit could possibly be to... Actually, that's a whole different question in itself, the benefit of the free company vendors. But I'm trying to see if I can find out if gardening is part of the incentive for free company vendors with that question. So the next question I had was on something called ventures. Now, ventures are something that's quite interesting to me. And the reason is because basically we all have retainers and they all look cool. And ventures are basically the activity of being able to pay your retainer to go out and farm things for you. Now, we don't know the extent of this. We don't know if they're going to be fishing, mining, botany, if they're going to be going out and killing monsters and farming materials that way. We don't know any of that. So I just asked a few general questions. 1, will players be able to see retainers out in the world while they are doing these tasks? And that's an important question because a lot of people like to say that there's not enough life out in the world, and while I don't think this is the right solution for it, it's a start. Seeing retainers out in the world definitely makes it feel very alive. And depending on what kind of tasks they're able to do and how much it's utilized, how useful it is. So that's one question for me. The other question is, how effective will ventures be by comparison to a player manually performing the task on their own? So that one is really just... So it's like if I'm lazy and I just need a few of whatever items, I can tell my retainer to go get them. Or I can go get them myself and it'll be even quicker, but I might just be too lazy to do it. It's just, will it be more effective than going out into the world yourself is my only concern. I don't want it to be. I want it to have some drawbacks. Other than the fact you need to pay your retainer, which is one drawback already, I don't think it would be very smart for retainers to be more effective than the player at obtaining items. So I guess we'll see. Hopefully they answer one of those questions about ventures, because that seems like a cool aspect, but how's it going to balance with the world in the game? Now, the next question, I don't even know why they let us ask questions about this, is about item level. Just ask questions about item level for patch 2.2. There's only one question anybody has, or, well, it branches off. What item level will the gear be in patch 2.2? You know, and then it branches off Leviathan, Moogle Extreme. I don't know why I call him Moogle Extreme, Binding Coil, AF2. What item level will it be? And then that, it's just, people want to know that. So I tried to ask a different question in the hopes that maybe this one will get answered. And my question was, as item level increases, can we expect more dynamic stats on gear to relate to the increase in power? That is the question that's very similar to the set bonus question I had earlier. And I just want to know if the reason why they're holding back on creating more dynamic stats is because it was the first set of gear. And that maybe as gear goes up, the gear will become more interesting until we get to the expansion where it will kind of reset and be a little bit weaker and then again move up again. I'm just curious if that's how it's going to work. I have no idea. But it would be cool if we could start getting some set bonuses and stuff. That's all I want to say. Now, the next one was on the Glamour system. For those of you who don't know what the Glamour system is, that's the Vanity system. So we are getting the Vanity system this patch, and it's going to be called the Glamour system, where you're going to be able to craft crystals, and you're going to be able to basically make one piece resemble the appearance of another piece. So you don't have to look like everybody else. You can go get level 20 gear and make yourself look like that for all that matters. And I only had a single question because, you know, a lot of the questions are really normal here. You know, what restrictions will be on it? And I had sort of a question that was like that, what restrictions, but I tried to narrow it down. And my question was, will the newest gear from the Binding Coil, Turn 6 through 9, Leviathan, Moggle Extreme, etc., be included in the Glamour system when it initially releases, or will it be excluded until patch 2.3? And I'm only thinking back to the reason why they didn't allow us to dye Allagan gear and Myth gear back in 2.0 and 2.1. So I'm only asking that on a hunch that we won't be able to use those. We won't be able to change the look of those or use them to change the look of something else. I have a feeling. I don't know if it's accurate. Just a feeling, guys. The next section was about Hildebrand. And Hildebrand, as you guys know, one of my favorite quest lines. Definitely a hilarious quest line. If you haven't done it in 2.1, you're missing out. Go do it. You're probably going to want to because there's going to be content for it later on. And there's no real reason not to do it. Will this quest line eventually call for similar boss fights like Chimera, meaning we fight in an instanced version of open world areas? Now, I know Chimera was added to the Duty Finder, but his arena, more or less, is still in the open world. And that is why I asked the question. Will this questline eventually call for similar boss fights? Now, some of us know there is a classic Final Fantasy boss fight that takes, you know, there's a battle on a big bridge, as Yoshi P said himself, that we should be looking forward to. And I don't know if it'll be in patch 2.2, but I'm just wondering if these are going to be all solo fights, if they're going to be fates, if they're going to be fights like Chimera, where they're out in open world areas, but we're fighting them as a group, and it's actually like an 8-man or 4-man thing. Just curious. And the last question, the last topic they had questions for were the Beast Tribe quests. You know, we've already gotten the opportunity to ask about Beast Tribe quests before 2.1, so I don't really know what to expect differently from this one, but I tried to ask something different. And I asked, will there be any major incentives to continuing with new Beast Tribe quests once you are the maximum reputation rank? That was one thing. The dailies that were in patch 2.1, sure, you could do them and get up and then buy your reward with Gil, which I didn't like that you could buy it with Gil. And then you were done. There was not really any incentive, and that's partially because, you know, the shards aren't worth much because crafting's not as important anymore. There didn't have large Gil rewards. Sure, you could do them to help level up other classes, but there wasn't any major incentive to go back and keep doing them. I'm curious if there will be this time. I doubt it, but it was worth a try, right? And those are all my questions for patch 2.2 for the Live Letter 13, which again will take place March 21st, 2:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 6:30 p.m. Japanese Standard Time. So just, I don't know, GMT, whatever, GMT -5, so I guess 10:30 a.m. GMT. I don't know all of the time zones in the world. Those are just a few off the top of my head. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about these questions? Do you guys think that we'll get some of these things in here? Be sure to leave comments in the section below. Also, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. I would very much appreciate that, and it would very much help. Also, be sure to go ask your own questions or go like other people's questions so they're more likely to answer those questions. If you see somebody who's already asked your question, like it. That lets them know that it's a high priority question. So, having said that, hopefully you guys are looking forward to patch 2.2. One last thing, a little prediction. Prediction, patch is dropping March 25th. I think the patch is going to start on the 24th on Monday. It's going to be a super long patch, and we're going to eventually get to play it on March 25th. The servers are going to go live with patch 2.2 on March 25th. That is my guess, because they said March, and I don't see any reason why they should diverge away from March, and they are just leaning more and more into it being March. So that's my prediction. Hopefully it comes true. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching. Take care.